What is up, everybody? It's me, Duke Farley, back at it again here on Lost at Sea. And tonight, I am unfortunately joined by the fifth person eliminated from Ascendance Live Season 4. I am here with Chris G. Chris G, what is going on? How are you? What's been going on?
I am here. I am, as you said, the fifth person voted out, and I am the fifth rookie male voted out. So we are having quite the sausage fest in the pre-jury house right now. But thrilled to be here and chat with you and talk about those gosh darn it girls.
Chris G, those gosh darn it girls. You were very vocal on the way out. Don't trust them. What?
Absolutely
Why didn't
not.
why didn't we go for them earlier on?
Um, so I think there was just a narrative that Ascendance Live hasn't had a huge success of women winning the game yet. You know, in the past four seasons, there hasn't been a female winner. So I think people were really aware this season that the women were often targeted. And every single time there was a vote, the first thing that would come out of somebody's mouth was, "We're not going to let a woman go yet. We're not going to let a girl go yet. We can't lose a girl just yet." And so I just think that there was just this whole shield over all of the women in the cast during the time that I was there, in which nobody really wanted to vote anybody out. So it just seemed like there was never an option to vote any of the women out.
How difficult is that for you? Because this is something that came up when I actually talked to your partner Alex a couple weeks ago, where he was kind of put in a bind at one point where nobody wanted to vote for the women during his elimination. And same here for you. How kind of restrictive is that on the game as a whole?
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it really wasn't too much of an issue because I only got to vote at two votes. I voted the round that Chris Yu went, and during that time, it was just Chris Yu or Eric. And then the round that I went, it was between me and Michael, and I was fine to obviously push Michael. And then there was quick talk about possibly a Billy going. But that never really came to fruition, as you guys saw. So it really wasn't an issue that the women weren't on the table. In the game before my vote out, I was working closely with Taylor and Rachel and Erica during Hollywood Gossip. So I really wasn't targeting them. Um, but as you saw, my opinions changed right at the very end.
Yeah, you mentioned, the Hollywood Gossip Alliance. I think you mentioned the three girls, and then Adam, I think, was a part of that, where you guys were on the
Yep.
bed, kind of made that thing a you mentioned not wanting to go for those three and potentially Adam. Why? What the hell? Why did they not, help you out?
So the only person that did vote to save me was Taylor.
Right.
Taylor and I have known each other from a year ago. We were in the same LRG, and so Taylor always had my back. When it came to Erica, Erica was definitely the one that really, really hurt me on that. That's why she got her own solo call out at the end. But I think had Rachel and AMK been in that vote with me, I think that we would have been able to pull something off together because Adam had no idea that I was going, apparently. And even though Rachel said she didn't know, I think she knew, but there was really nothing she could do because she couldn't vote. So I think Erica was just kind of left on her own. And the cards started falling in my direction, and it seemed like she had nothing else to do except go with it. And so, unfortunately, we tried to make it work, but we had a great one episode run.
Right. Um, Chris, I do want to talk a little bit more about the specifics of your vote out, but I want to go
Yeah.
back. I want to commend you because throughout the first couple episodes, I was really taken back by a couple people, mainly Eric, who was very gung ho on, I don't like what my partner's doing, I'm cool with him going.
Uh,
Um, but the polar opposite with you. Once your partner was in trouble, I thought it was so awesome to see, you kind of putting, your foot down and trying to save Alex however
mhm.
you could. Um, Was that I remember preseason you mentioned that, if you guys had gotten far, you could have used Alex as a shield for yourself.
Mhm.
But talk about how important it was for you to kind of, stick up for Alex.
Yeah, I mean, Alex was my partner. I would have ridden to the end with anybody that I went into the game with, but Alex was the reason that I was on this season. My original partner was supposed to be Nick Faber from season one, and he unfortunately had to drop out. So I told Nicole and Papa that I would kind of work with them um, as like an alternate or like a backup in case they needed something last minute. And sure enough, Alex's partner dropped out, and we've known each other for years because of Mayhem Manor. And so he was the reason that I got into this game. So I felt that it was only fair that I do whatever I can to try and keep us in that game for as long as possible. And as you guys saw, Alex isn't really the most outspoken person. I think I took the title for that on our team and probably the whole entire season too, as one of the loudest and most outspoken people. And I know how bad he wanted to play the game, and I just couldn't sit around and watch as my friend was targeted for no real reason other than he was just existing. So when I caught wind that Alex was the target, I went to him, I grabbed him, I was like, "Look, you need to focus. You need to try and push for Michael Davis." And I was giving him talking points about what to say for Michael Davis. I was talking to him about who to, appeal to. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I am happy that I at least tried. I'm happy that I at least stood up for my friend and I tried to make a move for him.
Yeah, it was really awesome to see. And not saying that Eric M is not doing the right thing with what he's doing in the game. It's just like polar opposites. It's
Right.
it's just so fun to watch the difference there.
Yeah.
Chris, the next round, it seems like this is kind of where you take a shot. You kind of were a big vocal point in Chris Yu's elimination.
Mhm.
Um, Walk me through why that was the case, and looking back at it now, would you have done anything differently?
Sure. So the reason that I was kind of so vocal against Chris Yu were the same reasons that people wanted to take Alex out. Chris Yu wasn't doing much of anything during his vote out round. He had Christopher kind of go around and pitch to all of us and try and keep us, voting to save him. And Eric McHenry was fighting for himself. And at that point in the game, I had developed a working relationship with Eric. So I just knew that keeping Chris Yu in the game just really wasn't good for me. I wanted people who would defend themselves and speak up for themselves and fight to stay in the game. And Chris Yu just was not doing that. Um, Looking back, I probably should not have been as vocal about pushing my agenda. Um, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that the reason that they targeted me was necessarily because I was keeping, my agenda of pushing Chris Yu out the door. I don't think that's the reason why I was targeted. So going back, I might lay back a little bit, but I would still stay strong and vote for him to go.
Um, yeah. So I know that you haven't seen this video yet, or if you will watch it, but I did interview Jim last night, and
Oh boy.
Jim also mentioned that you were one of the people that he felt like he connected with a lot in the game.
Hmm.
And he said that he thought that you had a good relationship, the two of you, and that he would oftentimes throughout the course of when you guys were in the game be like, Chris G, you're awesome, you're playing well, but calm down.
But calm down. Yes, yes,
um,
Jim definitely did do that. Um, I've said it. If you guys subscribe to their Patreon account, you will be able to see what it was like when we all came into the vote out villa, and they kind of interviewed all of us, and we all talked about like what happened. And when I got voted out, I was telling everybody, I was like, I know that my downfall is I'm so outspoken. I don't always know how to pump the brakes and relax. And Jim was always trying to tell me, he was like, "You're doing so good. You're doing amazing, sweetie. However, you are really, really out there. And at the time, I just thought he was kind of saying that as a way to save his own ass, because the husbands were just an absolute dominant force in that part of the season that they were there for. They were absolutely, incredible. Everybody was talking about them. Everybody knew the husbands, loved the husbands, wanted to work with the husbands. So I thought that Jim was doing that kind of to help me, but more so to, keep himself a little bit safer. So I appreciated it, but I also didn't know how much I could trust him when he was saying that.
Right. So this kind of leads me into, your eventual vote out here. There is, the conversation with you and Jim, and I wanted to ask you your perspective because it seems like there was a lot of information that came from that conversation that might have maybe been misconstrued or led to, some sort of targeting of you eventually.
Yeah. So looking back, I haven't watched my full episode because I'm way too proud to see myself fail. And so I've watched like bits and pieces of it, obviously enough to splice the last little moment that I had. But I do remember when Jim and I were talking, and he made mention of like the infamous balcony, you know,
Mhm.
the eliminated players would be able to come and watch us in the challenges, that once you were eliminated you could go watch the challenges. And I think it was the sponge challenge that no, it wasn't the sponge, whatever challenge I got on, I think it was the sponge challenge that I absolutely sucked in. All it was like Blaker and Alex and Chris Yu and Matt, they were all up on the balcony watching us, and that's what Jim was referencing. He was saying, you know we could vote for Michael, but think about when you look up on that balcony and you see the jurors, they're all newbie men. And I think that's kind of what he was throwing out. That's how I interpreted it. Um, and in reality, I should have used that to help me. And instead, I think I used that inadvertently to blow things up, because by telling everybody what Jim was saying, that just further pushed the idea of like the all girls alliance. And you saw Erica say, like, if they want to push this agenda of an all girl alliance, I'm going to run with it and we're going to go with it. So I think Jim was trying to help me, but again, I was very stubborn. I didn't know if he had my best interests at heart, and I thought in that moment I might be able to use that to save me and pivot the vote somewhere else instead of on me.
Yeah. So obviously that kind of backfired a little bit because you ended up getting um the majority of the votes and were eliminated, but there was also the conversation or lack of conversation, I guess, with Erin, where you mentioned her going into a conversation and then you guys
Okay.
pivoted. So run me through that
Okay.
too.
So, okay, thank you for bringing that up, because there were two things that didn't make it to the episode involving Erin and me that I think really just absolutely sealed my fate. Um, the first thing, so we were doing that, like, everybody was doing their own version of the puzzle, and we all solved our puzzles, and we were waiting on Taylor and Rachel and AMK, and we were sitting outside probably, I would say, probably about 45 minutes. We were all just sitting outside. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't go anywhere. So we were all just sitting outside. And so, obviously the conversations are like, what happens if we lose? Because we realized after a while that, you know, people were sucking. And we're like, what if they just call it and we all lose? Like, what is going to happen? So I was talking to Billy, and we were kind of strategizing about what would happen should we lose. And he and I were talking, and I briefly said, I was like, maybe Erin, maybe Michael. And then Erin came up to us and was like, what are you guys talking about? And as soon as she said that, something happened. I don't remember if it was like production, called for us, or somebody finished the challenge. But for whatever rhyme or reason, Erin comes up and she said, what are you talking about? And I said, the vote. And then our conversation shifted and we never got to go back to it. So from Erin's perspective, she comes up to a group of people. She said, "Who are you talking about?" And they say the vote, and then it's never discussed anymore. If I was Erin, that would have raised a red flag immediately. And I think that's exactly what happened. So Erin kind of walked into a conversation, didn't get a positive answer, and was kind of set off on the fact that she might be in trouble. So that happened. And then, as soon as the challenge ended, we're all like, hugging Taylor because Taylor's weeping because she sucked at that challenge. We're all making fun of Rachel because, Rachel sucked at the challenge. AMK was, on his fifth smoke break already because he could have solved the Tower of Hanoi. And we're all like congratulating and hugging each other. And Erin pulls Erika aside and was like, "Can we talk?" And I heard it and I like went to go with them. And she goes, "No, just us." And then she kind of pivots away. And I was like, sound good because I want to have a conversation. And all of a sudden, you're shoved out of a conversation. So as soon as both of those things happened, I was like, uh-oh, Erin's got it out for me. Something is going on with this round. And I think from that moment, Erin really spearheaded um, that round and just swung for the fences.
When did those things happen? Did that happen after the thing with Billy, or did that happen before?
Yeah, so the Billy thing happened in the middle of the conversation while we were all waiting for the girls to finish their puzzle. And then right after the vote, right after the game ended, we were still outside, and then she grabbed Erika, and then they kind of walked off, and then we went into the house, and then all chaos just erupted.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I asked that because this move here that it seems like is obviously spearheaded by Erin to take you
Hmm.
out. It's one of the biggest move up to this point in the game.
Hmm.
And I was wondering if it was something that you ever thought to just, say, hell, I'll go for Erin here.
So I thought about it, but again, there was this notion that the women were not kind of eligible to be even considered as a vote out. And it seems like the only thing that was getting any other traction besides Erin was Michael. Because Michael was just, I mean, the scapegoat for every vote. Nobody really trusted him. Nobody really liked him. Nobody really wanted to work with him. And so he was just an easy option at all times. And I had talked to Billy and I thought I had Billy in my corner and I thought I could, work with Billy and go for Michael. So it seemed like I would have voted for Erin, but there was just no traction. And when I knew that my back was up against the wall, I was just trying to get something to stick. And Michael was the only name that was an option to even go at that point.
Looking back at how Erin, kind of navigates and describes you as, a big threat, a big player, you know, looking back at the episode, does that kind of soften the blow a little bit? Like, okay, you know, she saw if I was threatening. Obviously, I'm a good player. Like, okay,
Yeah,
props to her.
110%. Every time I play a game, I would rather go out for being a threat than going out just because I was an easy option. Unfortunately, I think the first couple of rounds, there were some easy option votes, and some of the boys got voted out just because they were there. It was an easy vote. It was what the house wanted. It wasn't going to cause problems, and I would never want to do that in a game. I would never want to be described as a layup or a goat or anything like that. So it did feel nice to know that, I was the first like big move of the season and it was a blind side and they wanted to take me out because of my potential moving forward. And they were right. That was the first round that I was eligible to be voted for. That was the first team challenge that I lost. I had agency in the game and they saw the opportunity, Erin specifically, and she ran with it. So props to her. She made a really good game move. Um, and it's great to be a threat, but I would have rather been called a threat in the game than be told I'm a threat while I'm sitting at, jury vote out house.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that it was a blind side. Was it a true blind side to you that you were voted out?
Well, yes and no. Once we started going into the voting, um, so we have like our minutes to strategize, whatever, and then the clock goes off, and from that moment on, you're not allowed to talk to anybody. Production is very strict about once the timer's off, you can't talk. So I'm like racing around, and I'm getting this feeling that it's going to be me. But like Taisha kind of told me we were good, and Billy told me we were good. Um, Obviously I had Taylor, and I thought I had Erica. So then the timer goes off and we're going up the stairs, and I ask Erica, like, I was like, are we good? And she wouldn't look me in the eye, and then she just goes, and then I like quick looked at Aaron, and I was like, are we good? And then she wouldn't even look at me, and I was like, holy shit, it's me. I was like, I'm going. And so as we're sitting down, I started to sink in. I thought before we were going in there, I thought I was good to go. And then once the two girls wouldn't look at me, um, it really started clicking. And that's why I didn't stand up or say anything when he was like, if anyone has anything to say before the vote, say it. And if you watch it, like you'll see me like looking really dejected because I was so ready for it to be over. And I went to go vote, and I remember I was like almost crying in the hallway, and I was like, I knew that I was marching to my death sentence. I knew as soon as he had the votes come back out, um, I knew that I was gone. So I thought I was good, and then I quickly realized. So it was kind of a blindside. Um, in that moment, I was very blindsided.
Right. Oh goodness. So Chris, I thought that your exit, was very fun. Calling out the people. How did it feel
Uh-huh.
good kind of given that last nudge, like watch out for
Um,
these people?
Yeah, because when you watch the next episode with Jim, my name is brought up so many times in that episode. It was like I was there watching the episode and I was in the game with all of them. With the amount of times that what I said at my elimination was brought up and how that kind of played a part in the next elimination. So I knew that I was not going to go down without saying anything, and I was so hurt by Rachel and Erica specifically, just because they were two of my closest allies at that point. I know Rachel didn't have anything to do with the vote. She didn't vote. Whatever she wants, whatever she says nowadays, I don't know if I believe that, but um, she and Erica were talking all the time. They were always together at the hip. They always had their notes together. So I knew that Rachel knew what was going on. And I was upset because as a friend, I just wanted the heads up. I just wanted the heads up, and I didn't get that courtesy. And Erica also, like I told you, she wouldn't give me an answer and just shrugged when I asked. So I knew that I wasn't going to go down without saying anything. Like I was going to get that one last petty jab in before we went. And it worked really, really well. Um, I made the episode title, which was iconic, and then everybody was just confused as to what did I mean. Like, did I mean the girls voting? Did I mean all of the girls? Did I mean the green girls? Did I mean Aaron? Like, nobody knew what I meant, and I think that really sparked the next level and layer of gameplay where everybody was like, this was the first big move of the season. Now we are really playing this game, and now we are kicking it into overdrive. So I'm glad that, I was the one that lit that fuse and, started all of the fireworks that happened following after that.
A great TV moment. That's what we want as viewers.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you gave us that. Chris, I have one last question for you, but before I ask you that, you mentioned that you have the little inside joke at your own expense that I am so
Jesus
excited.
Christ.
I'm so excited to hear about.
Okay. Oh, so when I went to Ascendance, I didn't know what I was in for. So I drove, and I think I brought literally every single thing in my apartment. I brought everything that I own, every article of clothing. I brought pillows. I brought blankets. I brought hangers. I brought a freaking box fan to sleep with
Ooh,
because, I'm, in my 30s now and I need white noise to help me fall asleep at night. So
fair.
when we like I bring all of these things into the house and we're getting ready to leave and I get voted off and I walk around the corner and I immediately just collapse. I collapse sobbing, like pathetically sobbing. And one of the production members was on the side and he was like my handler and he was just kind of like awkwardly standing there and he was like, hey, like I'm really sorry. He was like, but you have to get up, we have to go. And so I'm like sobbing downstairs and I'm packing up my 15 pounds of clothes that I brought with me and including my freaking box fan. And I'm sobbing holding my box fan and my suitcases and he was like, okay, we have to take you out, we're going to go through um to take you to the vote out villa. You're not allowed to talk to anybody. I said, I don't want to talk to anybody. He was like, it's okay. You're not going to see anybody. It's totally fine. So he gets on the walkie and they're like, take him out back. And he's like, all right. We go out back and I'm fully sobbing, holding my giant box fan. And we walk around the corner and the entire cast is standing there getting ready for their next challenge. And they just
Oh,
see me sobbing, just, I mean, fully
that's
engulfed in tears,
brutal.
holding my box fan, pathetically walking across the yard. And this yard is huge. So they had to watch me for like a minute and a half to 2 minutes, sobbing quietly with all of my belongings. So, like, so mortifying. And then, like, I remember Papa being like, hold up, we have to wait. And then, like, I'm just going through the yard and nobody can say anything to me. I can't say anything to anybody. And then we get to the house and the production member is like, I'm really sorry about that. I was like, of all of the things you could have done for me, you made me walk in front of every single person holding my personal belongings, sobbing. And he was like, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. I was like, yeah, definitely. And then I go into the jury vote out. And if you subscribe to the Patreon, you'll see me show up with my 45 pounds of personal belongings, including the fucking box fan. And it's so funny. So Rachel kind of stabbed me in the back of the game, and now she continues to make fun of me by sending me pictures of box fans every single chance that she gets. So the cast loves to make fun of me for my embarrassing moment of carrying my box fan across the yard while weeping because I got voted out of attendance 4. So good job, me.
Who, Chris, who was the person that escorted you?
It was memes.
That's
You
even
know,
better. Awkward ass
he,
memes.
it was so funny because I was voted off and I hugged Stacy goodbye and that was really it. But I was just like so heartbroken and I'm standing there and I was like, can I have a hug? And Memes was like, okay. And he just like stood there. And again, I was crying and he was like, I'm really sorry. He's like, you can't be upstairs right now. He's like, you have to go. And I was like, why did they vote me out? Memes. And he was like, we had never like met or talked. And he's just standing there watching this grown man with purple hair weep on the floor. And then he was like, do you want me to take anything? I was like, no, I'm okay. And so I just lumber on out there. So Memes,
Jesus,
sorry
memes.
you were
Grab
there
grab the
to
box fan at least, memes. Jesus. Come on, man.
it was just so I was like after the game I was like I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. I was like because I was awkward and I was uncomfortable, so I can only imagine what you felt like afterwards. But yeah, he led me out in front of the entire cast parading my demise.
That sounds terrible. That's got to be the, that's got to be one of the worst production jobs to have on Ascendance
Yeah.
Live, being the person that walks the people who are eliminated out of the game.
Just got
Brutal.
eliminated. Yeah. And at one point I was like, I was bitching at him like he was like part of that. I was like, and then they voted me out. Like they knew I was a threat. They knew I was gonna go far. Like I can't believe I didn't get those. He was just like my sounding board for like the little like 10-15 minutes we had with one another. He got a lot of me. He got a lot of Chris in that moment.
Yeah, he'd be good for that. Chris, my last question before we conclude here, the exit interview is, what was your favorite part of the entire experience? Could be the game, something in the game, could be,
Yeah.
shenanigans after, anything.
Yeah. So I absolutely loved Team Tag. team tag was my favorite thing in the whole entire competition. I have wanted to play that game for so long, and it was like pouring rain, and it was so funny because we had Billy on our team, and Billy was screaming bloody murder at us for 42 seconds while we ran this game. And we knew from the start that we were going to win this challenge. But just running in the rain and seeing it last for no time whatsoever while Billy is barking at us in his Australian accent, that was one of my favorite things in the entire game. And then before they all turned on me, that night that we were in bed, the Hollywood Gossip, that was, I think, my favorite non like competition aspect of it, because I just walked in on this conversation and we somehow managed to form, at the time, a very strong friendship between the five of us, and we sat in that bed for hours. I mean, we were laughing so hard. We were making fun of Eric McHenry for hiding in the closet, and that was right before they showed a video for us, and Taylor Gaby was in like this really ugly bob wig, and so
Yeah.
we were all making fun of her. And for those few hours that we were there, we weren't talking about the game. We were just a bunch of giddy grown ass adults cackling about the misfortune we placed ourselves into. So forming Hollywood Gossip was definitely one of my favorite things. Um, yeah, definitely Hollywood Gossip and Team Tag. Those were my two favorite things. I really wish that Hollywood Gossip could have lasted longer, but not everyone is as faithful as I am, and those gosh darn girls really thought that getting me out was good for their game.
We will have to see if it was. Chris G, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to do the exit interview. So much fun getting to catch
Yes,
up and get your perspective.
yes,
I appreciate you.
of course. Yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me, and I can't wait to see what happens now. I hated watching it from the losers lounge, but I'm very excited to see everything that I missed out on.